Hi, everybody. I am just tuning in with you today from my kitchen to try to talk to you and let you understand a little bit more about our class, our second class of the week, which is going to be one-to-one meetings. And one-to-one means that I'm going to meet with you individually. I'm going to give you a specific time I want you to come to the Zoom meeting. And then I'm going to meet with each kid for just 5 minutes next week, or I guess for your second meeting, it'll be, I'm going to use the time to meet with kids individually, because in 5 minutes of just talking to you about your experience as a reader and where you are right now and how I can jump in and see what the next challenge is for you is the most powerful thing that I can do as a reading instructor. And until I get to know you as a reader, I don't think I can effectively teach you anything in the most meaningful way possible. So for me, I like to do as much one-to-one with students as I possibly can, even if that means on some days you might be spending time reading alone while I'm meeting with other students. That's okay, because time spent reading is really important. The only way to become a better reader, well, not the only way, but the most important way and probably the most powerful way for you to become a stronger reader is to read. So on these one-to-one days that will happen from time to time, I'll meet with you one-to-one and you will have my undivided attention. So this coming meeting, the second meeting we're going to have of the week, because remember, I'm going to meet with each of you, each class 3 times a week instead of 5. And if you're a remote student, we're going to break up those 3 hours as if they were 3 classes. So 1 or maybe part of 2 hours for the remote kids will be spent with me meeting one-to-one. Later on in the year, when I get to know you better, I might group you and have you, it might be 2-to-1 or 4-to-1. But right now, I don't know any of you well as readers. So it's super important to me that I start that. So what is that going to look like? Well, you need to bring 3 things with you to your one-to-one meeting. The first thing is the book that you read as your quick read. If you don't have a copy because you read it online, you can just make sure you have the title and the author so we can start talking about it. I'm just curious what you picked and why you picked it, so it gives me some information. While I'm talking to you, I will be taking, I'll have a note, a post-it like this, and I would have your name on it. So let's say your name was Joe Katz. I will put your name, and then I would have the date. So let's say the date was September 2nd, like that. And then I'm going to take some notes on what you're telling me about what you read or what you're like as a reader or things that are hard for you. And I'm going to take a note like that, and I will save that on a piece of paper that has your name on it in a notebook. And I'm going to watch that progression of the conversations that we have about you as a reader. What is your current challenge that you're working on? And then what do we decide is going to be your next challenge? And so I will watch over time you grow as a reader. I also want you to take notes. I mean, you could use the exact same method. It's pretty easy. You could have your notebook out and have notes like, this is meeting with Katz, September 2nd, and then here's what we talked about, right? And so you could say, well, we talked about the graphic novel Legend, and then we talked about what I was going to do next. So typically, so let's say Joe Katz told me that he loved the Hunger Games. So I would write that down, loves Hunger Games. Okay, and then he'd say, well, I read the whole series over twice already. I mean, I just love it so much. And I would say to him, you know, what might be really interesting for you is maybe, are you aware that Suzanne Collins also wrote another series called Gregor the Overlander? And he might say, oh no, I didn't know that. So I might say, is that something you might want to try? And he'd be like, yeah, that'd be cool. And I'd say, hey, that's an author study, which is a really sophisticated thing that readers do. So I would put a little arrow and I would say, oh, oops, actually, in my example, okay, I did plan this out ahead of time, but I could say Gregor the Overlander, right? Or I might say, are you aware that Hunger Games came out with a prequel over the spring or last spring, early summer called Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? And he might say, oh, I didn't know that. And I'll say, hey, Joe, what do you think? Which would you like to do next? And then I'll write down whatever he decides. Oh, I think it'd be really cool to start a new series, or I really would love to. I've never read a prequel before. Maybe I want to do that. So I'd write down what he decided. And I'd say, okay, well, next time we meet one-to-one, I'm going to ask you about that. I want to hear what you decided and what your thoughts are on it. And so as we get further and further into the year and I get to know you way better than that, I'm going to start to challenge you more specifically. Like I might say, you know, it sounds to me like you might want to start focusing on minor characters. We've talked a lot about protagonists over the last, in my notes from the last month or two. What about, would you like to do a little bit more of a deeper dig about minor characters? And he might be like, oh yeah. And I'd be like, okay, here's what you, so for each kid, wherever you are, I'm going to listen to what your experience is and where your skill set is right now. And then I'm going to see maybe one or two things that I'm going to suggest that you might want to take to your next book. And so that's what one-to-one is going to be this time. I am not yet sure, because I've never done this with 100 kids remotely, how often I can do this or what it will look like. So I can't make any promises, but I just know that until I get to talk to you a little bit about you, I don't know that I could help you nearly as much as I need to as a reading instructor. So that is my plan. So you already had your first lesson, and the next lesson is going to be one-to-one. So if you have any questions, you can just send me a quick email and I'll try to answer them as best I can. Okay, so again, pen, something to write with, hopefully some Post-its. I'm a huge Post-it fan, and the book that you read for your quick read if you've got it. Okay, see you soon.